I don't know him to be tough. Like we haven't even had problems. Like me and him. Like our issue, they'll say we had beef for 20 years, but
6 days before the arrest that would change everything, Sean Combs sat in a New York hotel room, cameras rolling, completely unaware that this footage would end up in the hands of his biggest rival. The video shows him pacing, frustrated, talking strategy with his lawyers as the news cycle spun out of control.
It's the middle of September and there's still no one died.
Bro, then you have to have a spokesman. You have to have some sort of comms to constantly be pushing that, Mark. Because you may just be the person that you just may watch CNN. So you at the wrong place looking to see what the people with the possible jurors are thinking. It could be somebody that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business of media.
What he didn't know was that this moment, meant to be private, would become the opening salvo in what's now the #1 documentary on Netflix, beating out even Stranger Things. 50 Cent's 4-part series dropped on December 2nd, 2025, and within hours it ignited a firestorm that's still burning. The documentary isn't just another celebrity expose, it's a calculated dismantling of one of hip-hop's most powerful figures by someone who's been waiting decades for this moment. And the question everyone's asking is simple: how did 50 get that footage? Because according to Diddy's legal team, it was never supposed to leave that hotel room. They're calling it stolen. Netflix is calling it legally obtained. And somewhere in between those two claims lies one of the most explosive controversies in streaming history. If you want to see how deep this rabbit hole actually goes, make sure you're subscribed, because what's coming is going to completely change how you see hip-hop's golden era. Curtis Jackson didn't just wake up one day and decide to expose Diddy. This beef has roots that go back over 2 decades, simmering beneath the surface of hip-hop culture like a pressure cooker waiting to explode. From the early 2000s, 50 has been one of the few voices willing to publicly call out Diddy, making jokes, dropping hints, and consistently questioning the official narratives around some of hip-hop's darkest moments. When Diddy's legal troubles started piling up in 2024, 50 didn't stay quiet. He posted relentlessly on social media, mocking everything from the raids on Diddy's mansions to the mounting allegations. Critics called it petty. They said he was kicking a man while he was down. But 50 had a different take entirely. In his recent interview with GQ, he explained it wasn't about personal revenge at all. It was about the culture. If someone's not saying something, he told them, then you would assume that everybody in hip-hop is okay with what's going on. He positioned himself as the voice willing to speak when everyone else stayed silent out of fear or respect for Diddy's power. But let's be real, there's definitely a personal edge to this. These two have been throwing shots for years, and when 50 announced he was executive producing a documentary about Diddy's life, it felt less like journalism and more like the ultimate act of revenge wrapped in a Netflix deal. Diddy's spokesperson didn't hold back, calling 50 a long-time adversary with a personal vendetta who has spent too much time slandering Mr. Combs. They accused Netflix of betraying Diddy's trust by handing creative control to someone who's been publicly attacking him for decades. 50's response? He fully owns the pettiness. "I accept that, I'll take that, I'll wear that," he said with a smirk during interviews.
What's your opinion on people that just say that you're petty? Are you petty?
I accept that. I'll take that. I'll wear that. I'm fine. You know, like I have antics that I've become comfortable with on social media because of the usage of social media. That's just that. You know what I mean? Like, but when they look at, they'll say me deciding to go on ABC is petty. The morning show's the biggest show. It's a great opportunity to be on that actual platform, but they looked at it further and said it's airing in prison, so this would be why I would like to do that. And it didn't come across as a reason not to. Of course, I was aware that it would be airing.
He even admitted to doing an ABC News interview specifically because he knew Diddy would be able to watch it from prison. The man posted about it on Instagram with pride, delighting in the idea that Diddy was seeing him promote the documentary from behind bars. If that's not next-level pettiness, nothing is. Before we dive into what actually happened in that courtroom, hit that like button if you're as stunned as we are by how all of this is unfolding. When Diddy walked into that Manhattan federal courtroom in July 2025, prosecutors were confident. They had built a massive case against him: racketeering conspiracy, 2 counts of trafficking, and 2 counts of transportation for prostitution under the Mann Act. The trial lasted 8 weeks, and the testimonies were brutal. Witnesses described years of coercion, violence, and what prosecutors called a pattern of predatory behavior spanning decades. But when the verdict came down, it shocked almost everyone following the case. The jury acquitted him on the racketeering charge and both trafficking counts. The big charges, the ones that could have put him away for life, didn't stick. Instead, they convicted him only on the 2 Mann Act violations, charges related to transporting people across state lines for commercial activities. On October 3, 2025, Judge Arun Subramanian sentenced him to 50 months in federal prison. 50 months, just over 4 years. For a man facing potential life in prison, it was a massive win. But for the survivors who testified, for the people who spent weeks reliving trauma on the stand, it felt like justice had fallen short. Diddy's legal team framed it as vindication, proof that the more serious allegations were unfounded. Prosecutors saw it differently. They'd lost the big battle, but they'd still put him behind bars, and with over 70 civil lawsuits still pending, this was far from over. The sentencing hearing itself was emotional. Diddy broke down crying as a video about his life played in the courtroom. He told the judge he'd gone through a spiritual reset during his time in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center and vowed to remain drug-free, non-violent, and peaceful. Whether anyone believed that was another question entirely. What we do know is that on October 30th, 2025, he was transferred to FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey, a low-security federal prison where he's expected to serve his time until May 2028, assuming good behavior.
Fort Dix isn't exactly the harsh environment people might imagine. It's the largest low-security federal prison in the country, housing over 4,000 inmates in dormitory-style units. Diddy's lawyers specifically requested this facility because it offers a residential drug abuse treatment program, which could potentially reduce his sentence by up to a year if he completes it. He's not in general population though. Reports say he's in a special housing unit for inmates in drug treatment, and he's been assigned to work in the prison laundry, a far cry from his penthouse lifestyle. But here's where things get interesting. President Trump, an old friend of Diddy's, was asked about a potential pardon. Trump confirmed that Diddy's team had reached out, and he said he'd take a look at it and speak to the Justice Department. As of now, nothing's come of it, and with 50 Cent's documentary dominating headlines, a pardon seems increasingly unlikely. The documentary doesn't just focus on recent allegations, it digs deep into the 2 murders that defined an era and forever changed hip-hop, Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. These aren't just unsolved cases to fans, they're open wounds, conspiracies that have festered for nearly 30 decades, and according to multiple sources in the documentary, Diddy's name keeps coming up in ways that are impossible to ignore.
Let's start with Tupac. On September 7, 1996, Tupac was shot multiple times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas. He died 6 days later. For years, the case went cold. But in recent years, Dwayne Keefe D, a former gang member, came forward with detailed claims about what happened that night. He says he was in the car when his nephew, Orlando Anderson, pulled the trigger. But more controversially, he alleges that Diddy had offered him and others money to take out both Tupac and Suge Knight, who was in the car with Tupac that night. The documentary features footage and testimony from Greg Kading, the LAPD detective who worked both the Tupac and Big E cases. Kading conducted a proffer agreement with Keefe D back in 2008, and in that interview, Keefe D claimed that Diddy's associate, Eric Zip Martin, was the middleman who facilitated the whole thing. According to Keefe D, Zip promised them $1 million to handle Tupac and Suge. The problem? After Tupac was eliminated and Suge survived, the money never came. Keefe D claims Zip kept it, which in a twisted way may have actually saved Diddy from a for-hire charge. In the documentary, we also hear from Kirk Burroughs, the co-founder of Bad Boy Records. Burroughs reveals something chilling. He says that in the days leading up to the Las Vegas trip, Diddy had him organizing cars and hiring people to drive out there. At the time, Burroughs didn't think much of it, but looking back now, he says he believes Diddy was orchestrating something far more sinister. Kading confirms in the doc that Zip Martin did indeed drive the same type of vehicle that Keffe D described, adding another layer of disturbing credibility to the allegations. Keffe D's trial for Tupac's death is set to begin in August 2026, and Diddy's name has already been mentioned over 200 times in pre-trial proceedings. If this goes to trial, it's going to be one of the most watched court cases in hip-hop history. And what former Bad Boy insiders are saying about Big E's death is just as troubling, so stay with me here because this gets even darker.
6 months after Tupac was shot, Biggie was in Los Angeles promoting his album Life After Death. By all accounts, he didn't want to be there. LA still felt dangerous after everything that had happened with Tupac and the East Coast-West Coast beef. But according to Kirk Burroughs in the documentary, Diddy pushed him to go anyway. Burroughs claims Diddy insisted that Biggie needed to be in LA for promotional appearances, despite the obvious risks.
LA. There were warnings all along for the last few months that we are not to set foot on the West Coast. It was award show season, and Sean wanted him to start promoting the album. Biggie did not want to go, but Sean talked him into doing all of those things. After the award show, Saturday morning, Biggie and I were to go to London, and we were going to have a 2-3 day press junket to have Biggie be one of the first artists from Bad Boy to meet the European press. I had worked on that for months and weeks leading up. That morning, I'm calling Biggie like crazy. What's going on? Wake up to... He's like, yo, Puff is bugging. He just called me and told me, I want you to stay here in LA. I don't want to stay, I want to go.
On March 9th, 1997, Biggie was shot and eliminated in a drive-by shooting after leaving a party. Just like Tupac's case, it remains officially unsolved. But the documentary digs into the uncomfortable questions that have haunted hip-hop ever since. Multiple former Bad Boy associates suggest that the rivalry between Death Row and Bad Boy wasn't just about music, it was about street affiliations, gang ties and power struggles that went far beyond album sales. The doc paints a picture of two labels, Bad Boy and Death Row, each aligning with different gang factions. Bad Boy allegedly had ties to the Crips, while Death Row was connected to the Bloods. What started as industry competition evolved into something far more dangerous, a volatile mix of egos, money and violence that spiraled completely out of control. Insiders in the series claim that while the artists were the faces of the beef, it was the executives, particularly Diddy and Suge Knight, who kept feeding the flames until everything exploded. Former associates describe an atmosphere of paranoia and pressure during those years. They talk about how Diddy operated, how he controlled narratives, and how people around him were expected to fall in line without question. The documentary doesn't present these claims as absolute facts, but the pattern of testimony from people who were actually there adds a weight that's hard to dismiss. The most damning parts of the documentary don't come from leaked footage or courtroom drama. They come from the people who worked closest to Diddy, the ones who saw what happened behind closed doors when the cameras weren't rolling. And their stories paint a picture of a man who wielded power like a weapon, rewarding loyalty and punishing anyone who dared to step out of line. Kirk Burroughs, who co-founded Bad Boy Records with Diddy, drops one of the most shocking revelations in the entire series. He describes a moment that still haunts him decades later. After the label started gaining serious traction and they were renegotiating their deal with Arista Records, Burroughs had 25% ownership of Bad Boy. It was his stake in the company he helped build from nothing. But one day, Diddy walked into his office with Kenny Meals. Kenny had a briefcase. Inside that briefcase were all of Burroughs' stock certificates. And Diddy? He had a bat. Burroughs is careful to clarify that he didn't feel physically threatened in that moment. He says he had people who could have jumped out of the shadows if things got violent, but the message was clear. Diddy wanted the stock back. He promised it was temporary, that he'd return it once the Arista renegotiations were done. Burroughs, angry and frustrated, gave in. He signed over his 25% stake, trusting that Diddy would keep his word. He never got it back.
Shortly after, there was an incident at a nightclub involving Diddy and some gunfire. In the chaos that followed, Burroughs was fired, just like that. No stock, no payout, nothing. Diddy avoided him for years after that, and Burroughs says he never received a cent for the company he helped create. The betrayal cut deep, and it's a story that illustrates a pattern that shows up again and again in this documentary. Diddy building relationships, extracting value, and then discarding people when they were no longer useful. Then there's Aubrey O'Day, the singer from Making the Band, who became one of the more high-profile voices in the series. For the first 3 episodes, she talks about Diddy in broad terms, describing the uncomfortable power dynamics and the way he treated people in his orbit. But in episode 4, she reveals something far more disturbing. A witness came forward claiming they walked in on a situation where Aubrey was heavily intoxicated and Diddy, along with another man described as light-skinned and tall, were engaging in activities with her while she was in that state. The details are explicit and deeply troubling. What makes it even more disturbing is that when Aubrey recounts the story, there's a sense that she herself doesn't fully remember what happened. The witness who came forward insists it was 100% her, but Aubrey seems uncertain, almost dissociative when discussing it. She also reveals a series of emails Diddy sent her, all highly suggestive and domineering in tone, making it clear that he saw himself as the boss and expected her to comply with whatever he wanted. If you're finding this information valuable and you want more deep dives that don't hold back, subscribing really helps us keep bringing you the truth that mainstream media won't touch. Roger Bonds, a former bodyguard for Diddy, also steps forward in the documentary. Bonds talks about how he initially admired Diddy, saw him as a mogul and a mentor figure. But over time, that admiration turned to discomfort and then to outright concern. He claims he personally witnessed Diddy acting aggressively toward Cassie, his longtime girlfriend, on multiple occasions. Bonds describes seeing behavior that made him question everything he thought he knew about the man he was supposed to protect.
Cassie's story is central to much of the legal fallout Diddy is now facing. In late 2023, she filed a lawsuit alleging years of physical and other forms of mistreatment. The case was settled within 24 hours, but the details in that lawsuit opened the floodgates. Suddenly, dozens of other people came forward with their own allegations, and the narrative Diddy had carefully crafted for decades started to crumble. Mark Curry, another former bad boy artist, shares his own experiences of feeling used and discarded by the label. He talks about the uneven treatment, the way certain artists were elevated while others were left to struggle, and the sense that Diddy's loyalty only extended as far as your usefulness to him. It's a recurring theme throughout the documentary. People who gave Diddy their trust, their creativity, their labor, only to be cast aside the moment they were no longer profitable. Let's circle back to the footage that started all of this, the hotel room video. 6 days before Diddy's arrest in September 2024, he hired a videographer to document his life. It's something he's been doing for decades, amassing footage with the intention of one day telling his own story, in his own way. But this particular footage was different. It captured him in a moment of extreme vulnerability, talking to his lawyers, strategizing, reacting to the news cycle that was destroying his reputation in real time. That footage was never supposed to be public. It was protected by attorney-client privilege, or at least it should have been. But somehow, it ended up in the hands of Netflix and 50 Cent. When the documentary dropped, Diddy's legal team immediately cried foul. His spokesperson, Judah Engelmeyer, released a statement calling the documentary a shameful hit piece and accusing Netflix of using stolen footage that was never authorized for release.
They claim the footage was taken without Diddy's knowledge or consent, and that having a videographer present during lawyer-client conversations may have unintentionally waived privilege protections. Diddy's team argues that Netflix is ripping private footage out of context, including conversations with his lawyers that were never intended for public viewing. They even sent a cease and desist letter to Netflix on Monday, demanding the documentary be pulled from the platform. Netflix's response? They're not backing down. A representative for Netflix directed media outlets to a statement from the documentary's director, Alexandria Stapleton. "It came to us, we obtained the footage legally and have the necessary rights," she said. "We moved heaven and earth to keep the filmmaker's identity confidential." One thing about Sean Combs is that he's always filming himself, and it's been an obsession throughout the decades. So who's telling the truth? Did Netflix legally obtain this footage, or did they cross a line? Legal analysts are divided. Some say that if Diddy hired the videographer and didn't have ironclad agreements in place, the footage might not be as protected as his team believes. Others argue that conversations with lawyers should always be off limits, regardless of who was holding the camera. The fact that Netflix is keeping the filmmaker's identity confidential suggests they're aware of potential legal risks, but they're standing firm. What we do know is that the controversy has only amplified interest in the documentary. Within days of its release, it shot to #1 on Netflix, even surpassing Stranger Things, one of the platform's biggest franchises. 50 Cent told interviewers he expected it to be #1, but even he didn't anticipate it outperforming Stranger Things. The combination of shocking revelations, decades of hip-hop history, and the ongoing legal drama has created a perfect storm of public fascination.
Beyond the murders, beyond the footage controversy, the documentary exposes a pattern of behavior that spans Diddy's entire career. It's not just about one incident or one allegation, it's about a system, a culture of control, manipulation, and alleged mistreatment that former associates say was baked into the way Diddy operated from the very beginning. The series revisits the 1991 stampede at City College of New York, where 9 people were trampled during a charity basketball event Diddy was promoting. It was one of his earliest ventures as a young promoter, and it ended in tragedy. The documentary examines whether proper safety measures were in place and whether Diddy took responsibility for what happened. Former associates suggest that even then there was a pattern of prioritizing profit and spectacle over people's safety. We also hear about Diddy's business practices, the way he structured contracts to heavily favor himself while leaving artists with minimal earnings despite their success. Multiple former bad boy artists describe feeling trapped in deals that looked good on paper but left them financially struggling even as their music generated millions. It's a story that echoes across the music industry, but the documentary argues that Diddy perfected the art of exploitation in ways that set a troubling standard. The series doesn't shy away from the infamous freak-off parties that came up repeatedly during the trial. Testimony described events where Diddy allegedly orchestrated activities involving multiple people, substances, and coercion. Witnesses described environments where boundaries were ignored, where people were pressured into situations they didn't want to be in, and where saying no wasn't really an option if you wanted to stay in Diddy's good graces.
Kim Porter, Diddy's former longtime partner and the mother of 3 of his children, is another figure whose story looms large over the documentary. Porter passed away in 2018 under circumstances that were ruled as natural causes, but conspiracy theories have swirled ever since. The documentary doesn't make definitive claims about her death, but it does include testimony from people who knew her, who say she was afraid of Diddy and that she had expressed concerns about her safety in the years before she died. Al B. Sure, a singer who previously dated Kim Porter, shares what he says he personally observed during his time around the family. He talks about behavior he found troubling, moments that made him question what was really happening behind closed doors. His perspective, combined with others who were close to Kim, adds another layer to the narrative of control and fear that runs throughout the series. The documentary also touches on the parties, the lifestyle, the excess. It shows how Diddy used his wealth and influence to create environments where people felt dependent on him, where crossing him could mean losing access to the industry entirely. Former collaborators describe a culture where loyalty was demanded but never reciprocated, where Diddy's needs always came first, and where anyone who challenged him was swiftly removed from his circle. So where does all of this leave us? As of December 2025, Diddy is sitting in FCI Fort Dix, working in the prison laundry, a stark contrast to the empire he once commanded. He's expected to be released in May 2028, assuming he completes the drug treatment program and earns good behavior credits. But his legal troubles are far from over. There are still over 70 civil lawsuits pending against him, each one representing another person coming forward with allegations of mistreatment, coercion, or worse. These cases are moving through the courts slowly, but they represent a wave of accountability that's been building for years. And with the documentary now in the public consciousness, more people may feel empowered to come forward with their own stories. Keefe D's trial for Tupac's murder is set to begin in August 2026. If Diddy's name continues to come up during that trial the way it has during pre-trial proceedings, we could see a whole new chapter of legal complications for him. Prosecutors in that case already mentioned him over 200 times. The possibility of him being called to testify, or worse, being implicated further, is very real. There's also the question of what happens to Bad Boy Records, to Diddy's business empire, to his legacy in hip-hop. For decades, he was seen as a mogul, a trendsetter, someone who shaped the sound and culture of an entire generation. But that legacy is now irrevocably tainted. Artists who once revered him are distancing themselves. Collaborators are speaking out. The mythology he built around himself is crumbling, and what's being revealed underneath is far uglier than most people imagined. 50 Cent, meanwhile, is basking in the success of the documentary. He's been open about how petty he is, how much he's enjoyed watching Diddy's downfall, and how he sees this as his way of speaking truth to power in a culture that often protects the powerful. Whether you see him as a truth teller or an opportunist probably depends on your perspective, but there's no denying that he's managed to turn a personal beef into a cultural moment that's forcing hip-hop to reckon with its own demons. The documentary has also sparked larger conversations about power, accountability, and the music industry. How many other powerful figures have gotten away with similar behavior for decades? How many victims stayed silent because they knew no one would believe them, or because speaking out meant career death? And what does accountability actually look like in an industry that has historically protected its biggest stars at all costs?
These are questions that don't have easy answers, but the fact that they're being asked, loudly and publicly, represents a shift. The documentary isn't just about Diddy, it's about a system that enabled him, a culture that looked the other way, and the people who finally decided they'd had enough. What do you think about all of this? Is 50 Cent a hero for exposing the truth, or is he just settling a personal score? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you made it this far, you're clearly invested in getting the real story. So hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep following this as it develops. The trial, the lawsuits, the fallout, we'll be covering all of it. This is far from over. Diddy's reckoning is just beginning, and hip-hop, for better or worse, is being forced to confront the darkness that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. The question now is, what comes next? This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. The content presented includes allegations, rumors, and unverified claims as reported in the Netflix documentary Sean Combs' The Reckoning and various news sources. Some individuals mentioned have denied these allegations, and Diddy's legal team has stated that many claims are false and taken out of context. Viewers should conduct their own research and form their own opinions. This video does not claim to present absolute facts about ongoing legal matters. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The opinions expressed are those of the narrator and sources cited, not stated as definitive truth. Some allegations discussed are subject to active legal proceedings and have not been proven in court.